as a Rams season ticket holder for 2 years. I haven't gone to all of them for all sorts of reasons, but as a Rams supporter, yesterday, and I got to tell you, I've been, while people have been very critical of the Rams over the last number of years, I haven't. They wanted to take their games to London, and I made a little stink. But that's because you want the games to be played here in your hometown. So I don't really see that as criticism. And then I think the Rams have done an outstanding job throughout the years of giving back to the community. Guilty as charged. I know some of the people in the community outreach division of the Rams than I do with the football side of the Rams. But nobody can argue that the Rams have gone out of their way to try and help the community. I think during the protests in August, they were great, where they opened up their football facilities for the high school kids so they could play football, and it was a way to sort of relieve some of the pressure from that these kids were dealing with, and I think it's fantastic. And I've been a Rams supporter from the very beginning. I also, let me say this, that I've been a supporter of athletes who want to go and promote their own agenda, whatever that may be, whether it's Kurt Warner and his Christian beliefs, whether it's Jeff Suppan and at his remember when he cut that commercial for one of the amendments, one of those right to life amendments here in the state, where he went and recorded it of his own time and did that. I have no problem with that. When Mike Matheny is off and doing all sorts of other things that is near and dear to his Christian faith, I have no problem with any of that, because they're people too, and they most certainly have a right, using whatever celebrity they have, to go off and do their own thing. However, they're not doing it in a Cardinal uniform. They're not doing it in a Ram uniform. Now we come to yesterday. And I was so excited to sit home. I didn't go to the game yesterday for lots of reasons, but I ended up not going to the game. And I decided I was so excited because I was gonna watch the game, and I was all weekend long. I'm like, oh boy, the Rams, this could be great. They're gonna be they should be 6-6 after this, but there's gonna be a good game, and they're really coming on strong. And I sit down, and I'm all ready to go, and I got my chips and my dip and my salsa and my sodas, and I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna watch the game. And CBS, as they go to commercial, they come back and they say, oh, there was a demonstration. The players, Kenny Britt, ran out, and they show his hands in the air, standing next to another player, and then the three other players come out, and they sort of wait there and sort of with their hands up, and then they continue to then run off camera. And I thought to myself, what was that? So I started texting, started calling, finding out more. And I realized at some point soon that was going to be a big story. First of all, I want to talk to somebody who was actually at the game yesterday, because Jeff Fisher says after the game that he didn't know anything about it because he was still in the tunnel when it happened, which I have no reason to believe otherwise. If that's what he said, why wouldn't you believe him? I believe he had no idea of what was going on. In fact, one of the players was quoted in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch today as saying that we didn't want to bother him with all the pregame when we knew we were going to do this. Kenny Britt was going to do it, and then some of the other players found out about it, and so the other players were like, hey, we'd like to sort of join in. Now, here's why I need to talk to somebody who was there, because at Rams games, what happens is the offense and the defense gets announced, and then each one runs out, and the rest of your St. Louis Rams, and then they all come running out. Here's my question. I'm assuming the offense was announced, okay? And if I'm assuming the offense is announced, Then Kenny Britt was a starter, I'm assuming. And so he was announced. And then I'm assuming Tavon Austin was a starter, so he was announced. And then because it's pretty quick and it's all pretty timed out. You have just enough time to run from the tunnel through the cheerleaders to the team, and then all these things are down to the second because you've got to deal with TV and commercials and all that other stuff. So the players come out, and then these other players come out, and then they pause for what is a longer time than normal, and then they run off the field. So I need to talk to somebody who was there, because did the other team, or was the rest of the team, were there still player introductions after that? Were they finished with the player introductions? Where was that in the whole process? I heard there was a smattering of boos. So the Rams have said that the Rams haven't said anything. Jeff Fisher said he didn't know. But my bigger question is, was this choreographed somehow? Was this just the players doing it on their own? Or was there had to have been some coordination, because when you have player introductions, the players go out as they're called. So they had players who weren't called who went out with the hands up. Now, after the game, Kenny Britt said that he wasn't picking sides, but that he was doing this to show his support for Ferguson. And then, after the first touchdown, his hands were up. And then you can see on his wrist, it was written, Michael Brown was on his wrist. And on the other wrist, which we found out later, says, my kids matter. And so he's claiming that he was supporting Ferguson and yet had a Michael Brown honored name on his wrist. And my kids matter, which is clearly not supporting Ferguson and clearly picking sides. Because if he wasn't picking sides, if he weren't picking sides, he would have put I Heart Ferguson on his wrists. He would have put I Heart Ferguson on his cleats. He would have put I Heart Ferguson all over the place, on his towel or whatever else. So he clearly is not picking one side. So my problem, or my issue with this is, one, how choreographed was it? How much did the Rams actually help? Was it? I'm not saying that Stan Kroenke was in on it, and I'm not saying Kevin Demoff was in on it. I'm not saying Jeff Fisher's in on it, but somebody within the Rams organization had to choreograph something to get the players at least in position to go out together. Did the other players hold back? It wasn't just a 5-person statement. And then Kenny Britt says afterwards, I'm not choosing sides. Clearly he is, which, again, is fine. If you're going to pick sides, pick sides. If you're going to write Michael Brown on your wrist, write Michael Brown on your wrist, and then stand up at the end of the game and say, yeah, I think Michael Brown was whatever. So that's 1 and 2 is disingenuous. It doesn't match up. It doesn't pass the sniff test. And then lastly, I respect Kenny Britt, that if Kenny Britt feels that somehow Michael Brown was wronged and he wants to go support the protesters and wants to walk peacefully and do it on his own dime and everything else, God bless him. He has every right to do it. And I will defend his right to go protest, even though I may agree or disagree with certain aspects of his protest. But you have to be smarter than that. In the Dome, in a toxic situation, right after everybody held hands together with a national anthem, are you then going to pick sides? Because hands up, don't shoot doesn't apply anymore. Because there is too much evidence within the report that says his hands weren't up and not saying don't shoot. And the people who said that have admitted to lying. Evidence doesn't back up their case, and many of them have recanted. So hands up, don't shoot makes no sense if you're supporting police brutality. Police brutality, still a major issue. If Kenny Britt wants to come on and talk about police brutality or hold a symposium or something outside of a taxpayer-funded stadium, which is set up as a coming together place and a place to, you know what, the Rams, you're a great diversion for what's been a really brutal couple of months. And we can all rally around the Rams. And guess what happens? All of a sudden, now the Rams players are making us choose sides. It was the wrong message. It was the wrong venue. It was the wrong time. It was the wrong place. The NFL has to say something about it. And now the Rams are in a position where they have to say something. If the Rams don't say anything, they're going to let it lie, which means they're somehow, now you have police officers and police unions, both the city and the county, demanding an apology. You have extra police force there to protect the players while the players are going around saying, I don't trust the police. That's a bad image. It sets off, you've pit one group against another. Now the Rams come out and they apologize. Well, now, wait a minute. Now you're infringing on his rights. Now you're sticking it to the people who actually believe in Michael Brown. And all of a sudden, now you've upset those people. So now you've opened up the door for the protesters to come and protest you because you have had the audacity to lean on one of your players because he is not allowed to say and or support Michael Brown. This is a disaster. We were talking to an ABC correspondent earlier this morning, and he said every single talk show he talked to this morning all around the country, all they wanted to know was, what about the reaction of Kenny Britt and the players with the hands up? It's on every single national outlet. It's on Fox. It's on CNN. It's on MSNBC. All the local TV channels have it. Now we have police officers calling their actions pathetic, demanding an apology of the team and of the Rams. And throw this on top of it. The Rams are going to come to us very shortly and ask for a taxpayer-funded stadium. Who is in the mood to give a taxpayer-funded stadium, the taxpayer money, to an organization in which they're clearly choosing sides in what has to be considered one of the most volatile issues of our time? 314-969-KTRS, 1-888-550-KTRS, or star KTRS. Those are the phone numbers. We'll take your phone calls next.